What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for post-game coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 6 National League Championship Series. But before we get into all of the details, I'm sure there is plenty that needs to be said, and we will get to it. I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for live recordings of the Mets Weekly Podcast, which will be coming in the off-season. Scheduling still TBD. For those of you watching live or on playback and you want to join the conversation in the future and chat with us as these streams are going, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you who are live in the chat right now, I want to let you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, everything regarding this team. You feel like you're being ignored. You're not. You're just being starred throughout the show, so we will try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for content over there during the off season coming up. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. For those of you tuning in on audio right now, in the future, make sure to tune in to our podcast live. We will not be doing any more pre-games for obvious reasons. We are officially done with the Mets postseason run. So without further ado, let's get into all of the details, and let's get into this post-game show and the Mets Weekly Podcast, the final one of the Mets playoff run. As for those of you who know, that's it. That'll be it. That is all she wrote. Let's just say that. The end of a 2024 playoff run for the New York Mets that was hopeful. There were plenty of ups. There were plenty of lows in this season, a roller coaster, and it ends today in Los Angeles, Game 6, losing to the Los Angeles Dodgers 4-2 in the series and 10-5 in Game 6. Lots to unpack about this game, lots to unpack about this season in general, tons of reactionary things to be said. But before I even go to you two on anything that you want to say about this game, because just to give it to the instant reactions, all I have to say right now is I applaud this team. I really do. And you'll never really hear that from me because I've never been one to say that this team or any of my teams that falls short, I would say it's a success. Being in the big market as New York as they are, but given the expectation, they just ran into a better team, and that is the reality. There were possibilities that they probably could have pulled this thing out, but the Dodgers were just better. And at the end of the day, it was a successful season. The first season in the David Stearns era. Still plenty of things to address for this team to get over that hump, such as the Dodgers, which is a team you're going to have to beat in the future. But I'm hopeful for the future. I'm not saying that I don't think that this is going to be a fluke run. I think this is going to be a sustained type of thing in this organization because we have the right guy running the show now. But as for, this game and this series, I will go to you guys, just the raw reactions as of right now. Frank, I'll start with you. Plenty to go over. But how are you feeling at this current point with the Mets season coming to a close tonight in Los Angeles?
Sad, frustrated, tired. It's after midnight and it's not a win. So as an older folk, these games are rough. But it's just knowing those games where it just kind of felt just a little torturous in the sense where you left 13 guys on base. You had your opportunities. And yes, the Dodgers were great, and they have so many guys stepping up. And obviously, Tommy Edman, the NLCS MVP, we'll get to that. But you had chances. I mean, that's the thing that's kind of frustrating is that, both teams had 11 hits. Both teams had 6 walks. But one team has 10 runs, the other team has 5 runs. So overall, not the first time or second time or third time that this happened in this series or in this playoffs. This definitely was one of the Mets' two main issues, was the amount of runners left on base, and it showed itself once again. And it was just really frustrating. There's a lot of things we get into, but Manaea, I mean, this is our horse. This is our guy that we counted on to be the guy to carry us. He did not do that. I mean, this was his worst outing yet. There could be multiple reasons why, but we just hoped for a little more. I mean, that was like the one thing that I felt pretty good about, was like we had Manaea, but then he just didn't come through. So once that happened, you kind of felt like this was going to be the outcome with how this bullpen has been. You were going to have a few guys pitch well, but to count on this many guys doing it, not going to happen.
And obviously, there is a lot of a house of cards type of feel with this team. And we've talked about this throughout the season before it even started, where you needed a lot of guys to perform in order for this to go well. And the Mets as a collective unit really did a good job at it throughout the entire year. But that house of cards just collapsed against a better team tonight. And it finally took its last shot to the grimace face, I guess we can call that. Andrew, how do you feel? Good to have you back, by the way. Guys, give a welcome back to Andrew. He almost had a near-death experience while riding a bull in the middle of, Brazil, I think? And he almost overtook you.
I think it was the Congo, yeah. I was fighting the Himalayan mountains.
Yeah, it was quite a traumatic experience for you, but glad to have you back. Glad to have you well. I wish it was a little bit more better news that you were back for, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as much as it's true that, yes, they are the better team and proof and because they won, it was right there. Like, there was so many, again, like, the left on base, the walks, like, you could say, and depending on how this goes, you could take this positively, you could take this negatively, you could go in every other facet. And I was talking, like, watching the game, and I'm like, what hurt more? The Knicks in Game 7 against the Pacers of this. But you could say, oh, well, the Knicks were, injured or whatever. Every opportunity, especially early on in this game, when it was 2-1, Alonso makes that great play. You had opportunities, and it was just sitting there. And then, even, of course, John Smoltz, oh, it was like torture for Mets fans. Because it was. Because, yes, we were always going uphill against the Dodgers. But it wasn't like, again, they were fully healthy, and Glasnow was mowing, and all their pitchers are it would be a different type of situation. Be like, okay, you just got mowed. It was like, white, it was right there. There was opportunities, like, this is a big turning point. It always ended up, it seemed like they'd rally with 2 outs, and of course they'd get out of it if it was weak. In today's case, just weak fly balls and situations. But again, even like the Winker AB, we all thought, especially how this season when he came up with the bases loaded, we're like, is he really at this grand slam? It was when it was a 3-run lead and Winker came up with the bases loaded. We all kind of thought in the back of our head, this is where the moment is. Because again, that's just how this team this year has been. Where you're like, it's gonna happen because it's happened throughout this whole run. You're like, and it just the magic run out. And like you said, it's a better team. You hate that it's that team, and who they're going to play, which again is, on Tuesday. Can't wait because I could just never watch baseball until February. It'd be great, but again, it sucks, and it was it was. I mean, how they played, the Dodgers were better, but it was right there. Like, it wasn't like, okay, you're outmatched. Like, it was, oh, okay, you get like, it was there. 1 or 2 hits there. This is a different series. In each game, you can say, is a different series. But that's not how the cards fell. Like you said, the house of cards went down. You had your ace, and, Diaz comes in the 4th inning. We're like, what the hell? And, it was close, and then Senga came back in, gave up the runs in the 8th inning, and it was like, okay, the couple of bases loaded opportunities, and you're just like, all right, I guess this is how this miracle season, fun season's gonna end, with just.
Yeah, I think when I look back on this entire series, it always just seemed like we were chasing the Dodgers and not playing the Dodgers, and that's kind of how I felt this entire time, because every single one of these losses that they had were just unsustainable offensive performances throughout a season. There was 8 runs, 9 runs, 12 runs, and 10 runs, I believe, throughout this entire series of how many times they lost. And then the Mets even had a blowout of themselves in Game 5. it really does show to me that this bullpen just ran out of gas. And I think that it really is one of the main things that can be established, because the Mets, we have seen them before. We've seen teams before score 5 runs the way that they did, or score, the way that they did, and win games like this. They had the opportunities. It's not like they were completely overmatched, because they were getting the opportunities, but the situational hitting wasn't great in this series. It just wasn't. And I think that that's something that has to be established and addressed in the offseason, but I feel like it probably would be something that is given another go because of the run that they had. But when you look at this Mets offense, this type of inconsistency, I don't think is going to pan out to another season. I do think that eventually it's going to come back to bite you. And it did come back to bite you against a team that doesn't really allow those types of free passes, the way that the Mets kind of did as well, walking batters the way that they did in this series. They didn't walk many batters. A lot of it was just not being able to miss bats overall from the just all 7 pitchers that they put out there. That was pretty much the whole on pitching performance. That I think pretty much buried them. That they had a lot of problems. This wasn't a perfect team. They were a team that fought to the end. They were a team that, they constantly, they were never out of it. They always bounce back. They always punch right back when they get punched in the mouth. But as, usually, whether you want to call it a Cinderella run or not, when you have those many glaring weaknesses and, you have some of these games where you're giving up 10 runs to a Dodgers team, eventually it was going to happen again, whether you win game 5 or not at the rate that it was going. And, I'm can't say I'm disappointed, because I really am proud of what this team did this year. I'm really, I do believe that the expectation that was set going into this season was something that was very, very low. Not many people trusted it. Not many people had any thing to put their hat on with David Stearns coming in. He's the new guy. Let's test this new guy. I don't know about this new guy. And they ended up winning 89 games, getting that last wild card, going deep into the National League Championship Series, and they exceeded expectations. I think when it comes to what happened with this team, when it comes to the high echelon of Dodgers, maybe Padres, they're not as good as those teams yet. They just aren't. And, you hope that this team does get younger, because they have some young talent as well coming up. You have a lot of these different types of things. But, I'm really encouraged from what I've seen. But there are still things that do need to be cleaned up that I'm like, if this is here next year, then we might have a little bit of a problem. I'm not talking about certain players. I'm just talking about certain things that need to be cleaned up. This team made a lot of noise this year, but they made a lot of the noise in a very messy way, and it caught up to them, and they weren't able to finish the job in that regard for a lot of the main reasons. The walks, the runners in scoring position, the inconsistent type of hitting. At some point, it was going to catch up to them. You thought maybe in the back of your mind, like Andrew said, maybe the magic comes, because you just know. You're like, okay, this is when it's going to happen. But it didn't tonight. And it ran out. But again, I do believe in this team going forward, because I do believe that you have the right guy leading the charge. And I think when it comes to what they did this season, I think Mets fans also have gained trust in this front office for the first time in a long time. And I feel like that was the most important thing we took out of this season. Frank, I'll go to you if there's anything that you want to add to that. I mean, I think that looking back right now, I can't be angry. I'm just, I'm bummed out, because, you wish that it could continue, but because it was a fun season. It was a fun run.
We talked about the walks thing for literally months, maybe honestly the entire season. We talked about the walk problem, and as far as their approach, their philosophy, as far as how they attack hitters or lack thereof, and then even on the offensive side, we talked so much about like the boom or bust kind of thing, leaving men on, avalanche innings, like you have a bunch of runs in one inning, they don't see them for a whole bunch of more. Those kind of things that needs to change from a philosophy standpoint. The looking at fastballs on the plate, but chasing secondary stuff in the dirt. There's a lot of stuff that, like you said, it's not specific players. It's more so just an overall approach as a team. And I feel like that goes to coaching. However, when a team gets to game 6 of the NLCS, as much as it pains me to say this, I think it's unrealistic that you're going to see coaching changes from the hitting and pitching coach. The manager, I'm for the most part I'm okay with. There's like some things I disagree with, which we'll get into, but he was kind of dealt a tough hand in a lot of senses with how many guys were underperforming. But I just think that overall those kind of things need to change, because you could bring in some other pieces, like you could bring in other pitchers, you could bring in other hitters. But if you're telling your group that this is what we should do and like this is the way to win games, that's tough. I mean, you can only do so much there, no matter who you bring in. If you totally change what they are, I mean, we've talked about that with a lot of our guys, with Alvarez, Marte, plenty of others, where you try to make them something they're not. That's one of the things that does worry me a little bit too, is that I just don't want them to kind of continue that approach. And it's just like, and it seems like simple things too. It's like, don't walk batters, pull fly balls. Like you would think that this would be like common knowledge, but for the most part for this team, it just hasn't been. Like swing at fastballs over the middle, don't chase. Like these should be basics. Like this should be like baseball 101, but you saw it over and over for months and months and months. That's not been the case with this team. And you look at this Dodgers team that doesn't chase, and it's like, wow, if we did that, we'd be in a totally different scenario. Even if we didn't have Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Teoscar and Muncy and this guy and that guy, if you have players playing the game the right way, it goes a long way. So, I mean, I just don't think that those kind of changes are going to happen, unfortunately, with how far this team was able to get with what they have.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of looking at it as my concern going forward. And that is the fact that this team, I feel like if at the rate that they went this year, and it's no like disrespect in the regard of how they did, because they did have a great season. But when it comes to looking at something like 2022, in that regard, and I do trust the guy up top to do a better job than the other guy that was on top at that point. But when it comes to that 2022 season, how I look at it going into the offseason, and we will get to tons of offseason content, and we will start right away. Don't worry, we're going to talk a lot about evaluation beyond this roster. One of our first episodes in the offseason is going to be talking about players that are free agents and which ones would stay and which ones would go, and who that, what we would do in regarding in-house. Then we'll talk about external. We'll talk about all of that stuff. But as for right now, my deal in regards to going into this offseason is, the goal is, how do we make 2024 not look like a fluke? Because we have seen the Mets go to the playoffs before. We've seen them get deep playoff runs. And have they ever gotten back? I mean, they really have had these droughts in between runs. It's true. I mean, they've really have not been able to be the consistent, sustainable winner. Frank, I mean, as better than anybody, the 2006 team. After that happened in Game 7 of the National League Championship Series, they never got back. They never got back. And it was just years and years of sorrow going into Citi Field, the ballpark of death where nobody could hit. And it came up in 2015. Then 2016, everybody got hurt. That was their back-to-back years of making the playoffs. They spent 3 hours in the playoffs in 2016. And then they were done. 2019, they got close. Don't count that. Wasn't successful. They didn't get to the playoffs. 2022, they got to the playoffs. And then the next year, they faltered. We get back to the playoffs this year. What's going to happen afterwards? We talked about 2024 going into this year of being an evaluation year. Andrew stupidly called it a rebuild year because he's an idiot. But when it comes to how they evaluated this thing, and I do think that they're going to evaluate things in this offseason, which gives me somewhat of hope that things will change in terms of the coaching, where Stearns wants to maybe hire his own guys. That's my only hope, but I'm not betting on it that, coaches like Chavez and Barnes are going to be gone, because I feel like they're going to give him the leash to keep going. I think that Jeremy Hefner will stay. Carlos Mendoza is here to stay. I don't care if you disagree with some of his moves that he has made. He has been a great manager for this team all season, and I don't want to hear it. There has been things I haven't agreed with before, but there's been many, many times as compared to other Mets managers where I understand what direction they were going in. And that's always been the case when it comes to Stearns and Mendoza so far of what they've done. There's been some times where I don't agree with things, but that doesn't make me want to write them off completely, because I do have trust that they can lead this team into a sustainable winner. But in regards to any other pieces of details you guys want to go into, Andrew, I'll cue you in here. You said it was right there. Of course, the Dodgers, if they went to, if they ended up going to Game 7, right? And the Mets ended up winning this series, they would have blown a 3-1 lead. Now, as a Penguins fan, you know a lot about blowing 3-1 leads, especially to New York teams. Now, how does it feel to see that the Mets just could not finish that one off the way that the very powerful Rangers have done many, many times to the Pittsburgh Penguins?
And how did that run for the New York Rangers end up? Oh, yeah, they lost to a better team. Went on, a surprise run! Just to get clapped in the Eastern Conference Finals by a better team. The symbolism is ironic, isn't it? Yeah. I guess kind of the Chavez note, because I think obviously we want him gone. The only chance is, especially we've seen in the past offseason, if somebody wants to make him their manager, which we've seen in past off seasons. This guy has had supposed managerial, opportunities. Again, we'll see what openings end up, once the playoffs get over with. So there maybe is a voucher and outlet there. But again, maybe Stearns wanted to guess. Hefner has survived more than the damn, Godzilla at this point. The guy doesn't die, and he's going to find a way to be here next year. And yes, we want to rip our hair out, but there are things that, yes, it makes you want to run up a damn wall if it's
It's
in-game.
gotten better. I will say it's gotten better.
Slightly,
there's still problems. Let's just say that.
And the fact the walk issue couldn't have been corrected again, but besides the point, Mendoza again. This is the guy that Stearns picked. Like, he's not going anywhere. And like, if we're gonna nitpick managers' in-game decisions, that's every manager. So everyone that there has not been a manager in baseball that every single he pushes the right buttons. Sometimes you do, sometimes he doesn't. As long as he doesn't pull a Kevin Cash, which he hasn't gotten to that level yet, then we're okay. Pulling a World Series, an ace out of a World Series game, okay. But yeah, from the coaching perspective, I could see a marginal thing, because again, this isn't Stearns has picked none of these guys, and you see it in the front office. He's picking getting rid of all those guys and getting his front office in order. And I even think something you said where it's like, they need to completely rehaul from like the mistakes and little things that like maybe trends. It's gonna take time. And again, this is year one. I'm not saying it has to be, nothing can change, but it's gonna take time for every little thing, like the trends in the offense. And hell, if Stearns is doing this in 1 year, maybe he is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he, all his buckets changed, he builds a super team, and we're maybe going deeper next year. Who knows? But again, we have faith in the guy upstairs. The coaching, and here's a word with the Mets that we rarely get to see. They're stable. They have a president of baseball ops / GM. We're not talking about this year. And a manager. Stability for once in our damn life. Isn't that a crazy idea? If you want to nitpick, bench coaches and outfield, we can do that discussion. But we have a manager that this GM picked, who deserves to be here. And again, he's going to be here. Nobody's calling for his head. I didn't see that on Twitter. I really haven't been on Twitter much. But from that perspective, with Stearns this offseason, it is, again, this is more of an offseason thing, but I'll generalize it before. He does have a very interesting path because there is a hell of a lot of similarities to that 2022 season where you have a face of the franchise on the market, testing a free agency. What do you do with him? You're going to have the fan pressure to overpay him. Does he do it, or does he do what the other one did? Is his response to go proven veteran? Or does he maybe go the athletic route and stay in-house, or maybe a different internal youth option? The rotation, it worked last year. It worked. It got us the, a rotation that we ripped to shreds with, bargain bin. Does he double down on that? Is it more, in my opinion, I think he needs to be more aggressive in the trade market for pitching, but if he's dipping into free agency for pitching, is he going to, like he didn't do last year, dip into term and top front end guys, or is he going to try to double down again with the let me bank again on reclamation project? The bullpen, every team blows with the bullpen, but if they have more than one guy throwing less than 95, that's a problem. I mean, this run, especially with Maton, where you're only semi-reliable, were Stanek and Diaz, so you're only two guys consistently throwing the ball 97. But there's a lot of things. Again, also, the youth movement is also something that he has to the athletic youth movement. Yes, I don't want to bank on prospects, because we've seen the core four really only once hit. We'll see what Alvarez, the other one's a bust, and the other one blew out his ACL. We still don't, we banked on this was the farm. Can you trust this next group, or is he doing? Yes, where the game is becoming more athletic and more speed and stealing, which those guys do provide, but how much do you want to put into faith in kids? Do you want to go back to the long-term books? There's so many ways that he can go in this offseason. For, again, a season that we win 84 games and we're probably happy is 2 wins away from the World Series. I mean, and yes, you have the rotation, which is a question mark, because you only have one, confidently, David Peterson. Obviously, Sang is there too. But you have 2 starters. Like, that's it. What are you going to be? And there's ways to do it. You have, if we think, one elite in-house option in the farm system. We'll see what some other guys, mid-rotation, whatever, great stuff, high upside, low upside. We have that. But there's so many ways, and I've been saying it throughout this playoff run. Like, I'm ecstatic that we're in the playoffs and we're winning playoff games. But I'm more excited for this offseason because, one, we have a GM that actually has a head between the ears. And where does he go? Because does this year, and this is another thing, does this pop change his plan? That is something to discuss. Yeah. Of like, well, he was, build a competitive team. Hope if healthy, Mauricio you would have probably seen what he would have been and what that would have been. Does this move up the forward? Thinking, okay, maybe Burns, maybe trade for so and so, and instead of let's take a step back because we took 3, 4, 5 steps forward that we didn't expect going into this year. Does that change the alternative of how aggressive Stearns is and how big of aggressive, bigger stars instead of, again, like he did at the deadline where it's like, well, how good is this team? I'll flex on the margins. Does that kind of turn the page of, okay, maybe we're opening back up that win now, big market, especially with all that money coming off, back to we're going to become the most hated because Cohen's going to spend the checkbook and we have a guy who knows how to actually spend the money, spending the money.
Yeah, we'll see how they do in regards to what they do in this offseason. It's going to be a really fun one, to be honest, to see where things go. And we all know what the first domino is going to be in regards to the Mets offseason. And we all know it is going to be that guy wearing number 20. And we all know what is going to be the full-on pivot. I understand he has been, one of the concerns regarding what his future is. But when it comes to Pete Alonso, we'll see how they address it. Because when it comes to Pete Alonso, he's definitely kind of the centerpiece of the Mets offseason right now. whether they decide to be aggressive with him and try to get a deal done, whether they just wait out the market and wait for him to, we'll see how they pivot. It's basically, it's very, very, it's very, very pivotal in the fact, and it's very, very similar to kind of how, and even though this kind of ended better for, but I mean, they were a wild card team as well, and kind of our same position making that run. It's very, very similar to what the Braves did regarding somebody like Freddie Freeman. He was kind of the centerpiece, pivotal moment of their offseason. And, you know, they tried to maybe bring him back. He wanted to come back, and it did not happen. He came back. He went to this Dodgers team, and they ended up getting Matt Olson to replace him long term. So we'll see what direction they go in regarding Pete Alonso. I personally would not break the bank for him after what we have seen this year. Do I think that he's better than this? Yes, but, you know, did he redeem himself a little bit in the playoffs? Maybe. There will be questions that will be answered regarding Pete Alonso. One thing that I will say regarding, actually, you know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it regarding what goes on with Pete Alonso if he does leave. But when it comes to a lot of what has happened this year, there is a lot to look out of, you know, in terms of what they can do to get younger, in terms of what they can do to bring in some of these sustainable pieces and maybe bring back some of these pieces. There's not many on this list that I would bring back, and there is a lot of free agents, which we are going to get into, of who we would keep and who we would let go. But when it comes to the main piece, that's going to have to be the first domino to fall. And hopefully it doesn't get dragged out in Scott Boras's hands, but we all know it possibly could. But when it comes to a guy like Pete Alonso, who's been one of the cornerstone pieces to this team for over 6 years now, that's definitely going to be the first decision that they're going to have to make. And whether they're talking about how they're going to be aggressive or whether how they are going to establish the market regarding Pete Alonso, that remains to be seen. And we will see after the World Series where their head is going to be at. Now, there's tons of things that I would do in regards to it, but we will get into that once the offseason starts. Now, I do want to get into the chat. Our guy CP, one of our fellow content creators, saying salute. Absolutely. Great season. Neo saying, Mets, did you respect to all the fans? Listen, for those of you who are Dodger fans in here, listen, we want to wish you good luck against those goddamn Yankees. Go ahead and beat them for us. And don't let New York be taken over by those people in the Bronx. You guys have a good team, and you won fair and square. All right, I don't think you cheated. Maybe you did. I don't know. As for Lewis coming in here saying Lindor was a disappointment. All right, good troll. Let's see. What about let's see. Yeah. Ricardo saying anyone talking bad about Mendoza needs to have their brain examined. Listen, I don't think he's perfect. I don't think he's been perfect this year. Again, when in regards to what has happened with Mendoza, he looks like a first-year manager of the mistakes that he has made. Is he in the first year? Andrew, Frank, is he in the first year as a Mets manager? Okay.
So.
Just checking.
Like yeah.
Just checking. That's just checking. Okay. That's kind of how I look at it. Listen, I'm not really ready to go for his head. He is not the reason why they lost this series. Okay. He isn't the reason. If you want to go into the techniques of he shouldn't have started this guy, he shouldn't have started the Mets needed to perform. The Dodgers performed better. You know, I'm not trying to nitpick this in the way of what the expectations were this year. And I'm not trying to say this as a consolation prize, because I'm usually the no-nonsense type of guy when it comes to my teams, especially when the Mets have given me the ajda that they have given me over the years. But when it comes to the overall when it comes to the overall performance, you can't really complain. You can't really complain as to what has been happening. And listen, if you think that any manager is perfect, you suck. I don't know what to tell you. You just suck. I really don't know what to tell you, because you're not in the brain. You're not inside the brain of a manager, and you would not agree with every single thing that they do. It's not possible to agree with every single thing that somebody says or does. I don't agree with my co-hosts here. Sometimes you guys don't agree with my co-hosts. Sometimes you don't agree with me. That's all just the circle of life. That's just how it is. That's how we are as humans. Anyways, done with the emotional talk about humans and how they are in the human race. But when it comes to this game, I do want to do a little bit of a full analysis of what happened. For those of you who are tuning in, I want to run this one down as the final events of the Mets 2024 season comes to a close. Here is your full-on game summary. Now, in the first inning, Michael Kopech did make the start. He would lose the strike zone early on in the first. And after a leadoff walk to Lindor and advancing on a wild pitch, Pete Alonso would give the Mets a 1-0 lead on an infield RBI single, but that lead would not last long. After a leadoff single by Ohtani and a one-out single by Teoscar Hernandez, Tommy frickin' Edman would give the Dodgers a 2-1 lead on a 2-run double. In the third inning, the Mets would strand the bases loaded. In the top of the inning, the Dodgers would start to break away. Tommy Edman would make it 4-1 on a 2-run homer. And Manaea would walk the next batter, and that would end his day very shortly. 2+ innings pitched, 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts on 64 pitches. Phil Maton would come in to replace Manaea, and Will Smith would greet him rudely with a 2-run shot, as that would make it 6-1. The Mets would fight back in the fourth after a leadoff single by Alvarez. Mark Vientos would continue his phenomenal postseason with a 2-run homer to center to make it 6-3. Edwin Diaz would come on for the fourth against the Dodgers' top of the lineup and retire the side on 11 pitches. He would also come out for the fifth and set the side down in order to keep it close. After the Mets stranded the bases loaded once again, Ryan Stanek would come in the sixth, and he would not record a single out after a leadoff walk, a bunt hit miscue, and a bloop RBI single by Ohtani that would add on to the lead to make it 7-3 Dodgers. Reed Garrett would come on in and work around the rest of the trouble to end the inning. In the sixth, after back-to-back singles by Taylor and McNeil to start the seventh, Francisco Alvarez would drive in a run on a sacrifice fly to make it 7-4, but the Dodgers would add three more to put this game out of reach. Mookie Betts would make it 8-4 on an RBI double. Teoscar Hernandez would make it 9-4 on a sacrifice fly. And Kike Hernandez would make it 10-4 Dodgers on an RBI single. Down to their final out, Tyrone Taylor would single and take second on defensive indifference. Jeff McNeil would drive him in on an RBI single to make it 10-5. Blake Triton would then get Francisco Alvarez to ground out and secure the series win. The Dodgers now take Game 6 of the National League Championship Series and advance to the World Series to play the New York Yankees. The Mets, on the other hand, are going home, ending their 2024 playoff run and, of course, finishing off the first official season of the David Stearns era. Now, as for the overall takeaways and the technicalities in this game, of course, we've had our reactionary takes of what we saw all night. Just breaking it down, of course, I want to start with the man on the mound tonight who started off, and it just was a disaster to start off, and he just never got his footing whatsoever. Sean Manaea, a really rough outing for him as to where he just could not locate whatsoever, was all over the place, was not missing bats. And I talked about this in our pregame as to where the Dodgers are a team that make really, really good adjustments. And I feel like that was the only fear that I had regarding Sean Manaea going into this game, seeing him the second time. We knew that he was going to be throwing that sinker just as much, and eventually somebody like Shohei Ohtani was going to catch up to it. It was going to happen eventually, and it all just kind of went steamrolling from there. And Tommy Edman continued his dominance of the Mets in this series, who I believe is probably going to go 0 for 20 in the World Series just to troll us. But in regards to Sean Manaea and his overall performance, which was very short, but a lot happened, of course, as compared to what we've been seeing this year, which has been great. But tonight, not so great. Andrew, I'll go to you. What did you see from Sean Manaea out of the gate? He just didn't have it. I think that's pretty much what you can establish off the top of your head.
Yeah, I mean, seeing him the second time on, and again, that horrific broadcast that was, excuse me, yeah, saying, again, he hasn't thrown this many innings, and could it be the wearing down of, him pitching so far? This is not the first time, and we like to say this isn't the first time he's imploded in a big playoff game on the road in the first inning. Obviously had to start in San Diego against the Phillies, so this isn't new. But again, you felt confident because he was his ace. But again, like you said, his stuff just didn't look good. His sinker was only sitting like 93, 94. And then, they weren't chasing. He wasn't throwing a sweeper. He had no control over sweeper. And it was kind of like a sinker changeup. And then you sit back. He had Tommy Edman on 2 strikes. And he throws his whole body early and still finds a way to keep the barrel throughout the zone. And, of course, hooks it into the corner, and Tommy Edman, I'm going to say this, John Mozeliak, I will find you, and I will kill you. But besides the point, because thanks, got to give up, Tommy Edman, who was on rehab in Springfield, was literally 20 minutes away from me doing rehab when he was traded. Of course, Dodgers want to pull that out of their ass. Let's trade for a guy who's injured on doing rehab at the deadline. And of course, he's their David Eckstein and pulls some bullshit and becomes God, but besides the point, just Manaea just didn't have it. And again, the Dodgers getting a second time seeing it. Yes, the first time that, that crossfire, whatever bullshit they call it, and he dominated. Well, he kind of ran out of gas in the 5th inning in that start. In this one, it was just he didn't have his stuff, and he ran out of gas early, and the Dodgers, again, getting that second time see him, made the adjustments and made him pay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think at some point, sometimes pitchers just hit a wall, and he definitely hit a wall in that 6th inning in Game 2. Frank, what did you see regarding Sean Manaea? Definitely things that we did not want to see today, especially with the reliance that we had on him going into this game, of him giving us another quality start and hopefully finishing out a good postseason, but it just didn't happen.
I found it very interesting that before the game, they said that Sean Manaea told Carlos Mendoza that once he hit that 80 pitch mark in Game 2, he felt like he hit a wall, and he just didn't really feel like he was able to have that effectiveness. And we certainly saw that in the Game 2, because we were saying that like he was rolling, and then all of a sudden he just did not look right. Walking batters, just kind of all over the place. And you saw that with his sinker tonight. I mean, that thing, he just couldn't locate it. I mean, it was over the middle. He's trying, Alvarez step away, he's throwing it inside. Like, I mean, he was really just, he didn't have it at all. And it just put the Mets in such a tough spot. So we talked about, oh, well, Manaea needs to go at least 6 tonight, maybe 7. We didn't say, well, what if Manaea goes 2? I mean, that was not even a thought. That was not a scenario that we had in our heads. And, for Maton, people talk about like his team option, whatever, like, come on now. He had a lot of opportunities in this long run between before the postseason started in the Braves series, then the Brewers series, then the Phillies series, then this series. He was bad in every single one of them. He could not miss a bat. I mean, these guys were, and it could have been more. I mean, they almost gave up a home run to Chris Taylor. I mean, that thing was caught at the wall. Like, this was a bad outing that could have been even uglier, because even his outs are hard fly balls. It was Drew Smith-esque the way Phil Maton was tonight on the mound. That he was lucky he only escaped with the 1 run. Diaz was phenomenal. I mean, he came in the 4th inning. I was like, whoa, Diaz went up at the 4th inning. What's going on here? But he faced the top half of the order, goes 2 innings on only 22 pitches. I feel like he could have gone further, honestly. If he only threw 22 pitches, why not? I mean, you're in an elimination game, go for it. But you're like, you know what? Stanek's been really good for us. We'll give him a shot. And Stanek gets nobody out. I mean, we didn't talk about that scenario either. We said, okay, Manaea goes 6, Stanek, Diaz, that's your bet. Stanek gets no outs. So you're like, okay, well, what do we do now? Okay, now Garrett. And Garrett was great. But then we go to Senga. And, I mean, I'm trying not to flip out about Senga. I really am. And I understand there's injuries, this, that, and the other. But when you get paid a good contract, you don't perform in the postseason, that's rough. I'll give him another year. Stay healthy. You know what I mean? Like, because, I mean, that goes along with it too.
Yeah.
Like, you pay the guy to be on the field, number one. He failed to do that by getting hurt multiple times, comes back from an injury and hurts something else. So that's your first thing. Then once you are here, you don't come through in the big spot. Now you want to do mechanics, you want to say it's health, whatever. But going forward, I need to see something because we went the expectation of this year. You are our ace. He was not our ace this year. He really wasn't. So it's something to monitor because he came in and he really put things out of reach. So that did not help the situation either. And then Budo comes in, one loud fly out. So overall, as far as you're looking at Mendoza, what else was he supposed to do? You know, I mean, we talked about it before, but it's like, you're not going McGill, he's burnt. You're not going Danny Young. David Peterson's not available. If he couldn't let Manaea go any further, I mean, he clearly showed he did not have it. He had to pull him. And these are the guys that he had. He couldn't have Diaz go 5 innings as much as I thought maybe that's a kind of an idea at this point. It was like, eventually you're going to have to go to these other guys. And Stanek and Senga, them not stepping up, it's kind of part of the game, unfortunately. Like, it's happened too much in this postseason where, you know what? We carried an extra position player. We said Ottavino can't be on this roster. We said that Brazaban can't be on this roster. Like, there's just too many times that we knew this was going to happen. And we talked about all season long how much some of these big guys got overworked because they did not trust a lot of these other relievers. And you saw that. And sure, if we had Brooks Raley, if we had Daniel Nunez, maybe Sean Foley, we'd feel a lot better. If we had Anthony Banda, we'd probably be a little better. But this is what we had. We knew that. So, I mean, for this to happen, not a big splash. You scoff, but listen, a lefty throwing 97, hey, I wouldn't mind it in this pen. It add a different element.
You really think that if he put on a Mets uniform, he would be doing the same thing?
He had the Mets uniform on. He stunk. But I mean, we have a great pitching coach, so I don't know how that happened.
I mean, you got a point there. But when it comes to Senga, here's the thing. M-Easy coming saying, how can you blame Senga for getting injured? Here's the thing. Okay, hey. Hold the
God,
WFAN.
No.
Hold it. Hold it. Okay? The main thing around pitchers is obviously health. That's always one of the most main things that you talk about of a long-term investment of guys staying healthy. And that's mainly one thing that you do put there, especially when you have a long-term deal such as Senga in here. Pitchers get injured, it happens, and that's the risk that you take. Do I blame Senga in terms of what has been happening those last 2 starts that he had in this series? He hasn't pitched all year. That's the reality. He has not been good, and I'm not saying he's been good, and he's been a dud in this series. But he has not pitched all year. So am I surprised? Absolutely not. I also do rebuttal that when he came into the game, it was already done. The game was already finished by the time that he came into this game. I mean, what would it would have been? 7-5? Would that really have met? I mean, would that really have made a difference in terms of that? I mean, to be honest, do you believe? Let me ask you this: do you believe that the Mets would get even more than the 1 run they got off of Blake Trinan?
No, I mean, no. When you go up against Blake, that's going to happen. But they were going to go to Senga at some point in this game, like 2 walks.
Yeah, I know.
3 hits.
I know what you mean.
Like,
I know what you mean.
That doesn't help the case. And listen, I mean, let's go a step further. He was a dud in game 1, and he was so bad that they said, you know what, we're going to go David Peterson over you in game 5. Like that.
Yes.
I feel like that says a lot. And what people also don't remember, I guess, is that when he first got hurt, we said, okay, maybe he misses a month, maybe he misses 2 months. Then that became 3 months. Then that became 4 months. So it's like something's got to give when you're talking about a guy being healthy. And you want to give me mechanics, but listen, it doesn't take the entire season for mechanics. I mean, that's just kind of crazy.
And
they asked him to be a reliever. They didn't ask him to be a starter once he came back. They gave him, like, give us an inning, give us 2 innings. I mean, they didn't ask him to start a workload either. And he still couldn't do that.
I understand. I understand what you're looking at, and it was a frustrating season for Senga. This is one to forget for him. It 100% was. And it probably will kick him in the future because he would need that, 400 innings through 3 seasons, and he's not going to get it. So he'll be here for the next 3 years. And I do think that he will be good because I do think that first inning that he pitched, he looked a little bit sharper. I do think he did, but then he was just leaving stuff all over the plate. And he was not able to miss bats. He looked like a pitcher that was stuck in spring training because that's what he's been all year, pretty much. He's not ramped up. He's probably not healthy. And, we're going to have to see, and there's definitely going to be a lot to prove of him staying on the field next year in regards to him. And that's been one of the proving deals for a lot of pitchers that have had injury history. Let's not forget who we signed in the offseason being Luis Severino, who we did not think would even get past 70 innings this year. And he ended up doing that. So it was a different look from there. And now that the fact that he's been healthy all season, he's going to be looked at a little bit different on the free agent market now. So it's going to be a little bit different. And I don't think in regards to when Frank says he's mad at him for being injured, I think he's just frustrated in the matter with how much they have invested in him. It sucks. It does. I mean, let's not forget the frustration that we all had, whether you liked him or not, or wanted him gone or not. Let's not forget all the frustration we had regarding Jacob deGrom's health in those last 2 or 3 seasons. Let's not forget. And that was one of the main reasons
Max
as to
Scherzer,
why
does that
he's not
name
here
come to
anymore.
mind? I mean, look what happened to him this year. And all the injuries he had. Verlander, look all the injuries he had. You don't want to sign another pitcher who becomes injury prone. I'm just saying, it's early, but listen, he's now
it's a concern.
30.
It's a concern.
That doesn't
it absolutely
get
is.
better. That does not get better. So, and now that he's locked in with us, he didn't get that option. We got him for a few more years, so he needs to stay healthy.
Yeah.
We can't have this keep happening.
Let's not forget, he does have a Tommy John's clause in his contract, too.
I'm just saying, when you first start back, your calf gives out. That's just not a great look. That's all I'm saying. It's just not a great look.
No, it's not great. Again,
You're
it was not a good
arm
season
injury,
for Senga.
not a leg. Like, you shouldn't be overcompensating or things like that. Like, I don't know. It's just not a great look.
Yeah. And again, listen, that's one of the factors you have to consider in terms of guys who you give these long-term deals to. And, when it came to, the age and like, catching the lightning in the bottle, we talked about a 10-year deal for somebody like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. This year has been an injury-riddled year for him, and nobody expected that. And that's kind of just happens with pitchers, and that's why you have to be You have to be very, cautious with your types of investments. Now, in terms of Jacob deGrom, I would have gone even further because he's a generational talent, one of the greatest pitchers I've ever seen. But looking back now, hindsight's 2020, he hasn't pitched. He has not pitched ever since. And I will admit that I was wrong. But when it comes to pitchers going forward who are not Jacob deGrom, that's kind of what is one of the factors in regards to somebody like Kodai Senga, who is not as proven as deGrom. He's a really good pitcher at his best, but if he can't stay healthy, he can't stay healthy. So, I mean, it's something you also need to look at. I think that's something you also need to look at regarding Luis Severino, too, even though he was fully healthy all year.
Exactly.
I still think that needs to go into consideration this offseason.
That's what I was going to say. So, this rotation, the way they approached it, they went very veteran heavy, 1-year deals. It worked out. You know what I mean? Like, Manaea hit, Severino hit, even Quintana, he finished out very strong. But like we said, now you got to assemble a new rotation. So how does that work out? Do you keep Manaea, who's now going to be 33? And it's like I'm saying, so it's like, let's say you give Manaea a 4-year deal, 5-year deal. And it's like we talk about. We know the first couple years might be okay, but once he gets past 35, how does that go? And with Severino, like, do people want to give him a 4-year deal with that injury history? He's going to be 30. Obviously, Quintana, we know he's above like 35, so that's really, really risky. So it's like we said. So then you maybe go after new pitchers and you hope that they hit. And there's no guarantee that they do. So that is one. That's probably like my one concern going forward is that, like, we had this good year, but now we have to kind of reassemble it. It's not like we have this.
You always have to be fluid, though. You just don't know whenever you're going to be in a situation where the pitcher can't stay healthy. You can't just say, okay, let's lock in this rotation for 10 years. These 5 guys, let's keep them there. Because if they get hurt, they're going to get hurt.
I mean,
it's going to happen, you know?
The Phillies are trying to do it. I mean, with Wheeler and Nola, they said, okay, these guys have been very durable, and we are prioritizing that and retaining them. And we'll see what these other younger pieces in like Suarez, Sanchez do. Then they got Talon Walker, who does not have the best injury history. But overall, it's like, you're right. A lot of teams can't just lock in a rotation the way they can with position players. I mean, that definitely is true.
This is why developing your own pitching is so important.
Oh, yeah.
This is why it's so important because of how cost controllable they are.
But that's another thing. Scott having Tommy John and he's not a factor next year, that also plays into it. Sproat has not made a major league start yet. I mean, like there are some question marks for sure.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how young a rotation is, I don't know what just happened to my camera there. My goodness.
What the hell was that?
Going in
it
and
just
out.
switched over. You guys still hear me, correct?
We do hear you.
You're still talking.
You do hear me. Okay, I don't know why it just switched over. Am I good now? There we go.
Yeah,
okay. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but anyways.
Got scared of your bald spot.
Okay, you know what? That was a low blow. Anyways. In regards to that, you know, I think that, you know, developing your own pitching and having that type of way that you can continue to just cycle through arms that are good until they're like how the Tampa Bay Rays do it, where sometimes these guys have success and then sometimes they get injured. It happens. Maybe they overwork them. And then they're like, okay, well, this guy's contract is up. Let's trade him for somebody else. Let's keep cycling. Let's keep cycling through this over and over and over again. And that's a good process in place. As for you know what it is, I think that there's no really way to just like, okay, let's plug in this depth chart. They need to remain fluid in that way because that's just how pitching is. That's just literally how pitching is. And I'm not going to look at it, you know, in terms of pitching where I'm like, okay, well, who's ever the best guy on the market right now, give him a 6-year deal. You know, I can't do that. I just can't in regards to like other things, especially on, you know, a payroll that, you know, we've seen get bottled up a lot in recent days, even though you have more money than God right now. I don't want to be tied down to that type of term. You don't want a Mets version of Jacob Trouba on your books, right, Andrew? I mean, that's the fact, right? You just don't want it.
Pay all you got. Well, no, you keep spending. You pay your goalie. You pay your left. You keep paying everybody. The cap's going up. We don't have a cap in this league. Just keep paying everybody. It don't matter.
Oh God.
Well,
anyways,
and that's the thing too. Why are the Dodgers favorites to sign Willie Adames and give him a $200 million plus contract?
Because they don't have shortstop.
The NLCS MVP is not a shortstop.
No, the Braves are going to sign him so he can torture us next year.
Oh, that would be rough. I hope that does not happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Garcia was terrible,
that could play
right?
short. I mean, Miguel Ross was hurt. They left him off the roster. Like they had 3 shortstops. Like you don't need Adames. Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of where you're exploiting the rules as far as like the deferring money, things like that, like no caps.
Yeah.
They're just really taking advantage of it.
I thought he just said no cap, just cash you. I thought he just do it. Yeah. No cap, you know. I ain't feeling that. Right. That was good.
Anyways, well, we're going to obviously be on here for a little bit longer because this is the end of the Mets season here. And also it is a fun occasion as well. For those of you who can't notice by the title or on your screen, it is the 100th episode of this podcast. And it's very fitting that it happened on the day that the Mets season ended. But I guess it's a sappy, half sour, bittersweet type of thing for it to happen. So it was great timing. Let's just say that. So we will get into some of the 100 episode festivities or whatever you want to call them. But first we have to get into a segment that everyone loves that we will be doing for one last time this year until spring training begins when we can overreact with it. For this game, studs and duds. One player in this game that played their ass off and left it all on the field. One player that was terrible. There's some obvious answers in this one. Andrew, I'll start with you on your stud for this game. What do you think?
again, thin pickings in a loss, but I'll give it to a guy that I've been even though he's a child, I've whipped a lot in this playoff run and throughout the season. Francisco Alvarez at least ended his season relatively pretty well. It was a good game, couple hits, drew a walk, which was good to see. Got an RBI, and of course he made the last out. But overall, he still couldn't throw me. He couldn't throw my fat ass out running, stealing. But you know what? Couple hits, an RBI. Good job to end the year.
All right, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was such a massive problem, and he needed to be benched. He was the worst player on the team, ended up finishing with the highest batting average on the team. Isn't that crazy how it works? Anyway,
I'm so glad my power phenom catcher is now a singles hitter. It's so great.
Yeah.
He's working on it. Listen, at least he's giving you something. It was better than what you're getting before. But the other guy, I mean, I feel like it does have to be Vientos. He really kind of got the Mets back into the game and really made it feel like you have a chance, but it ended up not happening. And real quick, as far as Vientos, I really feel like he should have been batting second. I mean, especially with how Nimmo's been struggling. I don't get that one, to be honest. I feel like I understand, like, in theory, like, Nimmo batting towards the top half, fine. But I feel like with his health right now, he should have been getting that many at-bats. Like, you had Winker swinging a good bat, you had Vientos swinging a good bat. Up to this point, Marte was swinging a good bat. I feel like you could have maybe lowered Nimmo to not have him sandwiched in between Lindor and Vientos. I didn't really love that part of it. So, I mean, but overall, I'll give Vientos as the stud.
Yeah, in regards to that, and listen, this is a whole other topic. Nimmo's not healthy. He's easily not healthy.
Yeah,
he 100% is not healthy, and I really, it was really sad to see him play the way that he was, because we knew that he wanted it badly. We knew that he did, and he's been around here for a long time. He played his ass off in regards to that. But he isn't healthy, and we know that it's going to be something to monitor regarding his foot. We know that he's going to receive the PRP injection in the offseason, which is now, and he will be in a walking boot, so we'll see how we monitor that in spring training. We know that he kind of like shortens the reps a little bit as well, considering his health.
I'll shoot him a text.
But he stayed healthy all season. He stayed on the field. We already know he's going to be here for a long time, so hopefully we can get that fixed up. And, we'll see what happens. But I think the best way to end this one off and close it out is with my guy who came into the closer that came into the fourth inning, I guess. He's the middle relief now. I mean, he ended the season on a positive note. Let's just say that. I mean, it wasn't the dominant self of all swing and miss, but he kept us in this game for as long as he could. For those 2 innings, because the Dodgers just kept firing back this entire series and widening the lead that they have. And listen, I'm excited to see him back in full swing next year when he wins reliever of the year. And, when he's back to his form next year, which I will 100% claim. And, he will be the closer for years and years to come. And for those of you who don't like it, you can check my badge. All right. Anyways, on to the duds. There's quite a few because we did end up losing this game, in case you didn't know. Andrew, I'll go right back to you. Who do you want to throw under the bus for one last time this season?
The guy I wanted to, of course, had to get an RBI and 2 hits. Bullshit, whatever. But I'll go Sean Manaea again. He's the tone setter. We all kind of felt confident. Bullpen game versus, the tribal chief, right? Yeah, gotta love when we steal shit from WWE. Such a great idea, and it ends up flat as always. But besides the point. But yeah, when you have your guy on the mound, you feel confident. You're like, hey, if we steal this, what the hell's their Game 7 start? And you felt confident. And just let the air out of the inning, especially you get a run. You wish you could have got a couple more in the first. You get one on whatever the hell that was by Pete Alonso, and you're okay, 1-0, and then just gives it right back up, and that was just kind of the trendsetter of how the night went.
Yeah, Frank.
I'll give it to Starling Marte, who went 0 for 5, and he went 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. I had some ugly swings. I mean, just like controller turned off, and now I'm hitting the button after the ball's in the glove kind of swings. Just like my swing button is jammed kind of swings, just like very ugly at bats, just not good, especially for a guy who looked like he really was hot and having a great series. Just the way he was not able to follow it up was kind of frustrating. But overall, that's just kind of the Marte experience. Unfortunately, it's just kind of one of these guys like with the approach we've talked about, like with chasing or just not hitting your pitchers that are over the plate. Like he's just a mixed bag, and like I said, he did not hit a home run after June. After he came back from the injury list, he did not hit a single home run. So that's a big offseason one as far as he's under contract. What are you going to do with him? Because it's just he's just a tough one. He's a tough one to figure out.
I think we all know that there's a little bit left, but there's not much. And when it comes to Marte, I think that he's had some decent performances this season, but that we're looking at a rough fourth year of this contract at the trajectory that we're going into a 36-year-old season. We'll get into the off season in regards to that as to what they want to look at it, because they have a lot of pivotal things they can do with a lot of money coming off the books, and they probably could air out some of the space with the two guys that I would love to offload their contract. But that's just a different story, of course, in the off season. I think it's easy to give this one to Phil Maton. Listen, I appreciate his postseason experience, but once he put the Mets uniform on, that Phil Maton, it's like it never existed. Soft tossing, it seems like he's very vulnerable to left-handed hitters, which is pretty much just the meta power part of this game. And if he doesn't have his command, he is just not that guy. And he was dominant all season, which is the main reason why I think they're going to bring him back. I personally wouldn't do it because I think that there's a cheaper way to kind of look at this bullpen and piece it together. But when it comes to, guys like Phil Maton, the soft tossing, it's time to move on to this crap. It's time to move on from this crap. Not just from the right side, but from the left side in terms of guys like Jose Quintana, who did have a really good end to the year. I will say that. But it's just overblown. You cannot face these types of elite hitters, whether you're talking about it from the Brewers with Churio, who's going to be in this game for a long time, or you're talking about like just even William Contreras, or the Phillies, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. You can't face these players throwing crap. It just cannot happen. And whether he makes the ball spin or not, when he doesn't, it makes him just another mop-up arm. And I feel like at one point you have to look at it from all aspects. And Maton did not have it this entire postseason. And if I were to talk about the full-on postseason dud, it would 100% go to Phil Maton because he was not effective once. Not once. And we're talking about a guy who had a really good stint with the Mets in the regular season. We're talking about a guy who had an earned run average under 1 in his postseason career. We had some expectations of him getting it done and him getting outs and him giving us those big outs in those situations to set up the closer. And he was unable to do it the entire time. And all he just became was unreliable. And it just shortened out this pen way too much. Another guy you could put out there, Stanek, was horrendous today. You can also put Senga out there, but again, what can you even expect? Like how I look at it is, what can you even expect from a guy who has not pitched all year? I mean, I don't even know what to say. When it comes to, guys who have not, played all year, when it comes to position players, it's a little bit different. With pitchers, you don't know what the fuck you're going to get at all. And it could just be an absolute disaster. And that's what it was for Senga in this series, coming back the way that he did. So, we'll see what happens as for that point. But I think it's pretty easy to say that the death of this team was the fact that this bullpen just got beat up. They just got beat up in the wrong ways possible, in the most inconvenient ways possible. Most of it was them. Most of it was them being overworked. but they just weren't able to get the job done, and it's been very shaky throughout the year. It's been very, very streaky in that way. Two notable pieces that I can say that we did lose this year, and we talked about it before, Raley and Nunez. Very, very big pieces that were very noticeably missed for that majority of the rest of the season. And hopefully they do come back, and hopefully they are effective, but relievers can be finicky as well. It doesn't look like we will see Raley for the rest of it. We have years of control on Nunez. Raley, it looks like he is going to be a free agent. He's going to undergo Tommy John surgery. Same goes for Drew Smith. That is basically just like, losing like a tumor on your head. Like there's nothing really that goes on there. So I'd say that, it was addition by subtraction, but feel better soon, Drew. We're rooting for you. There will be tons of models waiting outside the hospital when you're done. But when sorry, I really got to watch it. Okay. Before I explode. But in regards to this pitching, I saw somebody in the chat saying the Mets did not go out, for like high end pitching, and it really costed them. Here's the problem with that statement. Okay. They were relying on Kodai Senga to be that high end pitching, and they didn't have it this year. So that really just put a foil in their plans since day one. I mean, he got hurt, second week of spring training, and they had to go without him. Manaea and Severino did their jobs of making it up, but you couldn't match that type of number one in the rotation. Manaea did a good job down the stretch of the season. Severino had a great bounce-back season as compared to the worst pitcher in all of baseball that he identified himself as last year. Quintana had a good stretch. He had some really bad stretches as well. David Peterson emerged, but it just was not enough. They just did not have the number one guy every 5 days, the frontline ace of that staff. It was a grind for a lot of these pitchers to do what they have done. And when you look at the full-on results of it, most of them are mid-rotation guys, even though they have been somewhat saviors this year of why this team was in contention. When you talk about guys like Sean Manaea, I think that he is a solid number 2 in a rotation, and I think that he is a fantastic number 3, but he ain't an ace. He was pitching like an ace, but he's not an ace. Severino got injured when he was an ace at one point. He just isn't that guy anymore, and he's a mid-rotation guy. David Peterson had a great season, but we all know he ain't an ace. We know damn well he is not an ace. Did he pitch? Did he ERA the ball as an ace? Absolutely. But when it comes to regressing to the means, he is maybe a mid-rotation guy, maybe a back-end rotation guy. Maybe he just sucks in general, and Carson was right all along. But, in regards to my ego being flat now, the pitching staff definitely had some contributions from, the bullpen that had a lot of turnover this year as well. It's not like David Stearns did not try. It's not like David Stearns did not try to redo this thing on the fly that a lot of other administrations refuse to do. So when it comes to guys like Ryan Stanek, who was brought in midseason, Phil Maitana was brought in midseason, Huskar Brazaban, who was brought in, those were guys with upside. Those were guys with ability that were brought in. But it wasn't like, oh, well, we can just sign the next, the second coming of this guy in the middle of the season. He tried to retool this thing. If you look at this Mets bullpen, it's completely different. The only guys that are on the current roster, because I guess Ottavino doesn't count, Edwin Diaz is the only one that was on the opening day roster, I believe. Reed Garrett, maybe? Is Reed Garrett?
I don't think Reed was, because they had
no,
our buddy Tonkin and those kind of guys.
Yeah, Tonkin, Yohan Ramirez, Drew Smith is hurt. Who else? Jorge Lopez,
Otto, Raley, Lopez,
Jorge Lopez, Jake Diekman. I mean, he cleared this thing out. And you also saw a lot of accountability in this front office regarding the pitching of somebody in David Stearns who has been good at, putting in pitching, and there's been some success stories this year, and there's been some flops. It's happened. But a majority of some of the moves have been pluses on this roster, and they've been one of the main, and some of the main reasons and complementary reasons as to why this team went far. And you hope to get that type of sustainability of, flowing and hopefully there's ways that they look at it as to improve and not just be like, oh, well, we made the playoffs. We don't got to do shit. We're done. We're all settled. We'll do it again. We did it once. We'll do it again. I'm looking at you, former general manager who was suspended for 1 year. But in regards to David Stearns in that matter, he really tried. He did. There was a lot of moves that he made all by himself. He made them. And he disposed of them when they weren't getting the job done. He put his ego aside. He said, okay, Joey Wendell, you've been terrible. I signed you. Get the fuck out. Jake Diekman, you've been terrible. I signed you. Get the fuck out. Jorge Lopez, I signed you. You throw your glove into the crowd. Get the fuck out. I mean, there were standards, met here as to where, they don't tolerate this type of nonsense. Were there some guys that probably should have been let go, such as Adam Ottavino? But they also did, again, in David Stearns' defense, in Carlos Mendoza's defense, they also did move him to pretty much the low leverage. We didn't see him for weeks. I mean, and again, maybe it's because they kept him because he has the good baseball savant page, or maybe he has a good ERA in the last 0.2 innings pitched, or whatever the regards in that. Let's just hope he's just not here next year. That's all I care about. But when it comes to a lot of the in-season turnover, there was a lot of it. There was a lot of moving parts all season, and I give credit to David Stearns for trying, at least, and that type of trying, of piecing things together, got you all the way to Game 6 of the National League Championship Series. So you can't say that this wasn't a success this year. It's disappointing. It sucks. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna sting for a few minutes, for maybe, a few weeks or whatever, because no one likes to see their team lose. But the way that they put this thing together on the fly, because they didn't get Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, I mean, it was a success. Let's be real for a second. It was a success this year of what they did. Are we happy with everything that went on this year? Absolutely not. No one is. Especially with New York sports fans, they'll always find a way to complain about something. We already know by now. But I think that this was an overall successful year in terms of how they looked at it, in terms of how they evaluated it. We'll see. Explosive saying, Carson, if the Yankees win the World Series, it's going to sting forever. They've done that 27 times already. So I don't think one won't really hurt either way. But hey, we swept them in the regular season, right? So I guess technically we're World Series champions if they win. So technically, participation trophy. We were there. It would have been nice to have a Subway Series World Series because, I feel like the city would shake if that happened. But we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. But listen, and then, you can also add this saying they didn't do it in the internet age and meme culture. Listen, if you're a Mets fan right now, and I don't mean this to target any of you, if you're still insecure of the low Mets thing and you don't like being embarrassed, I mean, what can you say at this point? Like, there's nothing else that the Mets can do to embarrass themselves more than they already have. I know, take that as a challenge. I understand. But, but when it comes to it, it's like, we've seen it all. Like, we have seen it all. Okay. And listen, I think that other fans, when they win, they have the right to brag. They have the right to troll. They have a right to celebrate. Like when, in regards to, when it comes to this Mets team, I've always been talking about it from the objective standpoint of how they can improve and not just saying, oh, I hate this guy and, this team is awful and I'm trash talking them and Mickey Mouse this and Mickey Mouse that. in an objective way, there's been times where I've said it many, many times. Our opponent didn't win this game. Our opponent didn't win this game. The Mets lost because there were reasons as to why. I feel like there has to be an accountability aspect as to where maybe we move off of this victim mentality for Mets fans. And it's going to take a while of the Mets are cursed. Everything's against the Mets. At some point, you got to lay in your own shit. Like, at one point, you got to look at it and say, okay, what's the problem here so we can prevent the future of that, okay? And I just will say, Stevie Mac saying the Lowell Mets finished third in the playoffs so they can all suck it. There you go. Sure, exactly. I think it's a success. And listen, if there's anybody, for the Dodgers fans, of course, like I said, come here to troll us. You want to trash talk? Go ahead. You earned it. You won. You won the series. You're going to the World Series, and you beat the Mets. Fine, by all means. Maybe my co-hosts don't feel the same here because they have a little bit more fire in there. But if a team wins, they earn it. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. Unless it's, the Pittsburgh Penguins beating the Rangers, that's always fraudulent. And when the Rangers beat the Penguins, that's real. When I look at it, that's how I feel. And when, one of my favorite players messes up, it doesn't count. And when Frank's favorite player messes up, it counts against the world. I mean, it's the worst thing ever happened, The double standard here that we have created is definitely here, And Chris Dudley saying, I'm not here to troll. Yes, you have been very polite in this thing. It just as long as you're not, attacking people personally, it's all fine. Listen, for the Dodger fans in here that are watching, to watch us cry, I ain't here to cry. Listen, again, the Mets can't hurt me. Again, the Mets have hurt me enough. Okay, I am dead inside when it comes to the Mets. Okay, I've seen it all. I have seen tons of terrible teams. The fact that it's better as of right now for Mets fans, it's not a victory until they get the hardware, of course. But the fact that we see it getting better and the fact that they are stable, like Andrew said early on, that makes me feel great about it going forward. That's how I feel. Now, of course, maybe there is something that happens that makes me eat my words in that regard because the Mets are just funny like that. But in terms of what David Stearns has been able to do in this first year, where we did not have that many expectations, we'll see. Carson is scar tissue. Yeah, Christopher, absolutely. Listen, there is nothing the Mets can do that'll hurt me. When it comes to this, and I'm pretty sure when it comes to Frank and Andrew, the same goes for you guys. There is nothing the Mets can do that will hurt me. If I haven't left yet, I will never leave. I mean, when we talk about all the pain that they have given us over the years, to be honest, a loss in the National League Championship Series looks pretty good as compared to the alternative of winning 70 games every year. Everyone gets injured. It's a clown show in the clubhouse, and everybody's a diva. The GM can't stay out of his own way. The owner can't shut the fuck up. I mean, I'm better in that regard. And I hope that this is a yearly occurrence where we can toss this out of saying, okay, well, the Mets, they're an official team now. They're an actual legit contender every single year. They're a perennial contender. Hopefully we get there. But it's not just done by 1 year. So for those of you who think that we should have just traded for Soto, I don't know what to tell you. The Yankees did that, and they're going to the World Series. So for those of you who think we should sign Soto and just rage spend because we did not win it all, I don't think David Stearns is going to do that for you. Just going to say that. Carson, you're sounding like the Jets. Well, the Jets don't have any direction whatsoever. So, that they are a team that just flaunts from and glues on to the next and have absolutely no stability and do absolutely nothing over and over and over again. But listen, for the Jets fans out there, enjoy Devontae Adams. enjoy the cap screw up. Let my team tank in peace. Thank you. Anyways, as for any things that you guys want to wrap up, you know, from like any other thoughts, and then I do want to get into the last part of this that I do want to kind of wrap this thing up with, because it is a very special episode that we are doing. Frank, Andrew, anything that you want to add? No?
I mean, just the ESPN and their posts about trying to troll the Met fans, that's just unnecessary.
I don't care.
So
it's
just
care.
weird. It's just weird that
They've been blocked for
single
2
out
years,
a specific fan base.
Andrew just blocking everyone.
Yeah. If you're not, well, I wouldn't
I don't
say
care.
I wouldn't say. I won't say what I was going to say, but you know, if you're not, you know, a beautiful woman or I'm a friend of mine, if you put something stupid, there's a good shot you're getting blocked. So ESPN and the MLB dick sucking of Otani, they've all been blocked. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, listen. That's how the media is now.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I've gotten used to. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, this is just stupid, and I'll point it out. But again, like, you control the Mets. Most of it is at our expense. Like, most of it we do kind of just deserve. And, like, I mean, that's kind of just how I look at it as to how this has kind of gone for a long time. And listen, that might be me sounding like a people pleaser to everybody else, but again, we talked about this before. If they haven't broken me yet, they're never going to break me. You know, like they never will. We have had way too many scarring moments of this franchise. This ain't the worst one. This doesn't even crack the top 700 of worst losses or worst things to happen to this franchise. And I can list out those 700, but we do not have time for that. And this is going to be a particularly longer episode, obviously, but it's not going to be that long, of course. But you know what? I think that, you know, when it comes to, you know, Grimace will forever be remembered. Let's just say that. What was the other thing? The dog that was eating glizzies or whatever. Who's
Yeah.
The rally pimp. What were the other things that were
My homie Sergeant Seymour Wiener. Shout out.
Yeah, Seymour Wiener. That was the opening day, right? That was like the first thing.
First week, something like that.
We had quite the we had quite the playoff pumpkin. That was one of our last ones. The rally rat.
Pimp. Yeah.
The rally pimp, the rally rat that was just randomly in the Met storage room.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Spider-Man thing. I mean, it was a year of gimmicks. It was a year of gimmicks. It was a year of good luck charms. It was a year of dorks that just got red hot playing baseball. Like, that was it. That's how I look at it, and that's how I will always look back on this team. I don't look at it as a team that fell short. I look at it as a team that exceeded expectations. That's kind of how I look at it. And listen, it's pretty much been established that the Dodgers are a better team and they are a better organization at this current point. And hopefully we get to that level as to where, you know, they are competing with the Dodgers every year. And the Mets did get their, you know, they did get their hits in. They did get their whacks in on the Dodgers. They took this thing to 6 games, which is definitely not easy, especially for a team that is as, you know, 0-100 the way that they are. But yeah, I think, you know, at one point, you know, I think it's the best way, you know, Tommy Edman killed Grimace. You know, I think that's kind of how we will look at it. But Grimace will always have his purple seat, right, in the Coca-Cola corner or whatever. So, you know, I think next year, I think it's time to put the Grimace stuff to bed and get a little bit more serious. But as long as Pete Alonso is here, and we'll see if he is here, probably it will never stop because this team is a bunch of doofs. But at the end of the day, listen, it was a fun season. You can't say it wasn't. It was a roller coaster. It 100% was, but it was a fun roller coaster that ended on a massive exclamation point. This team made a lot of noise this year. It was not the roller coaster season of 2019 where they fell short, didn't even make the playoffs. They had a lot of adversity to face this year. They had a lot of inconsistencies. They had a lot of underperforming this year. And they were able to get over it because of how this team was assembled and how deep this team was, that they play their roles correctly. A group of good players make a great team. And that's what we looked at from this team. And they ran into the other level, which is an elite team such as the Dodgers. And they're going to the World Series, and we're going home. And that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not disappointed. I'm just, kind of bummed out. Sucks that it ended because it was a fun ride. But it definitely does not end here. We're still going to be here no matter what throughout the entire offseason. Now, as for future scheduling of the podcast, most likely we will be live once a week because there are not games, and then there will be like some filtered in news that goes on throughout the week that we will kind of do like a weekly recap. We will also have some off-season content regarding some videos. We'll have maybe some TikToks as well. I'm thinking about bringing back our, our ABC draft that we did, Andrew, on TikTok. That was pretty fun. For those of you who have not seen those yet, you guys seem to really enjoy that. But I don't know if we're going to do letters. We might do like different themes of like, noodle second basemen who are in their mid-30s and have rage issues. But, that I think is going to be one of our first things in regards. But again, there's a lot of things to unpack going into this offseason of how this team can improve, and hopefully that they do and they keep on this winning way of being this sustainable winner. I'm hoping that they are. There's tons of questions to be answered in this offseason, and we will be here for all of it. Now, as for before the offseason even starts, as this season ends, we are also kind of celebrating a milestone that would be for podcasters pretty much everywhere, I'd say, that have a podcast. This is our 100th episode. And I do want to say that even though we have gone way over the 100 shows, we have been live for many, many times. I can tell you right now, and I don't want to sound sappy or anything. I don't want to be emotional because I have to maintain my, awful, bad boy persona. But when it comes to, this show and comes to our podcast, I'll tell you, when it comes to what we have done here in, multiple years now, I think it's been about 3-4 years. I mean, we've been doing this since the beginning of when Steve Cohen took over the team. I think it was like the winter of 2021. I don't know what the exact date is, but it was around there. We went on a live show. If you guys want to know the whole story here, I guess we can give it out here. We went on a live show together. Frank was on, I think, that first one. Andrew, you joined a little bit later. And we kind of met a lot of different creators in that, and we started the live show, and it kind of, branched out as to where we kind of branched it out on ourselves, and I kind of took over the reins as to where we kept this as a consistent thing. We had a few things that fell through, but then we kind of just had this independent thing of our own podcast, and we definitely, had our official show where it was available on audio, where we could branch out. And this has definitely been and become a really fun platform to come onto every single time. And I'm hoping that, we can do this constantly and continue forever and ever, because it is quite a lot of fun, let's just say that, to talk about this team, yap about this team, overreact about this team. To all of the special guests that we have had over the years, thank you to all of our Mets Weekly alum that helped start this thing up before the podcast was even a thing. Tony Metro was one that we had here for a while. He was one of the alums. We had Talking Mets with Hayden. We had Elias from Big Apple Banter as well. We had tons of different creators that were involved in this one. And all for our guests as well that are also part of the Mets community, such as the Till Mets Do Us Part guys, John Saponaro and Matt Ibby Ibanez, Keefe and Keefe from Shea and Sons, CP as well, Chris from CP Sports, tons of other people that have been on our show as well, and hopefully fun guests to come as well. But for those of you who have tuned in from the very beginning, for those of you who have just found us on a random day, for those of you who hate watch us, for those of you who don't like us and can't stand us, for those of you who watch for me, for those of you who watch for Frank, for those of you who watch for Andrew, for those of you who watch for maybe two of us and not the other one, for those of you who don't get along with anyone and just want to wreak havoc in the chat, for those of you who are just people that want to come in here and troll and spam the chat and be pieces of shit, we appreciate every single one of you for spending your day somewhat in our chat live with us at any point. This has been quite a ride. It's not over yet. We're still going. And I appreciate every single one of you who have tuned in at any point, who have seen our content at any point, and we are just getting started in that regard. Here's to 100 more episodes. Let's just say that. For those of you in here, make sure to leave a like on the stream if you have not already. It really helps us out in the future. There's tons coming in the future as well. Frank, if there's any words that you'd like to say to honor episode 100, it's not like anybody died. The Mets season did die, but, to be brutally honest, that's what we are here. I give the floor to Frank. Let's applaud. It's like a banquet. It's very emotional. Frank, I'll go to you.
Yeah, listen, it's 1:42 a.m. on the East Coast, what's now becoming a Monday, and we're still going pretty strong between the folks on X, the people on YouTube. We still have a lot of people in here watching us. So first of all, we appreciate that. We appreciate you guys staying up with us. And, to everyone in the chat, there's plenty of you guys that we've seen here for years. Like Carson said, we've been doing the show for years. We've seen plenty of you guys for years. And in this postseason run, as we did more and more streams, 2 a day for a lot of them, a lot of you guys were in both streams just about every day. And we really do appreciate that. It does not go unnoticed. We know who our loyal people are. And, we talk about some stuff behind the scenes. We do want to make it rewarding for you guys. It's nothing that we kind of have in the works that we would like to do for you. So it's something that we do really appreciate. To everyone who's donated, obviously, a major thank you to those as well. But even now, also doing the shows on my channel as well. To everyone who watches on my channel. We appreciate you as well. So, we're trying to build as much as we can, whether it's the Twitter platform, the YouTube platform, the recaps that we did on TikTok every night. We appreciate the people on TikTok, like the people who, just everybody. We appreciate all of the support. So, like we said, we're trying to add some more things and just kind of keep all the different platforms growing. The audio listeners, thank you to them as well. So we really just thank everyone. I'm definitely very grateful, just speaking for myself. And I just love seeing it grow. I love seeing the Mets Weekly channel. I love seeing new faces pop up here or on my channel. It's just always nice to see new people join in and get in on the conversation. So, it's a safe place, as far as talking Mets or sports, whatever. So there's a lot of you guys who watch but maybe don't chat. We don't bite. We're a very welcoming group. That's something we pride ourselves on, because if we see anyone acting too crazy, they get banned instantly. So, so it is something that we do try to make a very respectful place for everyone to just kind of communicate. Oh, like we say, overreact, underreact, give us your takes, your questions, comments, concerns. No, we take them all on. So it's an honest show. It's negative. There definitely rubs some people the wrong way, but until they reach the ultimate goal and win the World Series, we're going to give you our opinion on what we think they need to do to get there. Is it right? Sometimes, but we're just saying it until it actually happens. And they got to NLCS this time around. It was exciting, and we hope that we can get a little further. And that's kind of what the offseason is going to be for. We're going to talk about the ways we think they could get there, because that's really, we all want the ultimate goal. Like I said, we're all on the same team, hoping that the Mets can actually be successful. Like, we want them to do well. It makes our lives much easier and less stressful. But it's just crazy to think, like I said, 100 episodes, all the series recaps we did. You know what I mean? It's just like the Marlins series and the Oakland series and the Colorado series and the Braves series, like just all year long, and just like all the different storylines that happened. Who was hot, who was not hot, like just so many different reactions and takes that happened throughout the years for sure. But even just this season alone, it was exhausting, but it was definitely still fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, and we're gonna, of course, keep going, but we definitely had a few rebrands in the process. Let's just say that. There were some stages where we were doing this as a live show. There were some stages where we were pre-recording this. There were some stages where maybe we had affiliations with somebody. It just did not work out. And then there was times where we just wanted to go live because Carson was editing into, like 4 a.m. with some of these podcasts. And, he needed to find something where maybe he doesn't lose all of his hair by age 25. And, even though that's definitely still on the pace for that, you guys will get to see that evolution because we're going to keep going. Don't worry. We're going to go past 100 episodes. But when it comes to Andrew, I know you always have these sappy remarks for everyone, and I know that you always have these inspirational speeches for everyone. But if there's anything that you want to say, in regards to what you have experienced here, as we pulled you out of the YouTube gutter years ago and brought you in here.
Yeah, I guess if there is something to find out, again, that original stream that these idiots and the other 97 people that were on that stream, I was in the chat where all you guys were chatting. I was in there. And, was I still, putting content on? And it was COVID and something happened. And this generic pediatric, McNeil sympathizer, he took a shot. And hey, look what happened. And now you got, the three merry men that we are, a rhinoceros, an old man, and a nerd. Do you love us? You hate us? You do care about us. And I think that's the best thing. You might hate, Carson for being, 12 years old and having the hair of a 90-year-old. Yeah, you might hate that. You might hate Frank because he's got a grimace pumpkin, he loves Jeff McNeil. But that's always the point, is there's always people that care. You might hate us, you might love us. But we're entertaining. We try to keep it entertaining as much as, that one likes to just make it a nerd spagage. We try to keep you entertained, but also giving you the information and doing it in an entertaining fashion. But again, we are never going to bullshit you. Like, again, we say the brutally honest thing. This is a hot mic. We know if you've watched the show, that's a hot mic. And Carson has a compilation. I'm kidding. Of these are hot. There's no filter. Even when we pre-recorded, there was always some things leaking through. But to the point of,
we pre-recorded for so long.
And I still found a way to sneak some in. Even in the videos, go back and watch those. But like we said, we're not done. We're not going anywhere. And again, just to see where we were, and at the point we had a lot more. But, at this point, I'm not going to be a dick, but we've got the group we need, and I think we could take this 100, 200. Again, Frank's going to be dead soon. He might be bald, so, it might be me and a couple of new chat members in 2 years. Who the hell knows? But just to be able to keep this going and, again, maybe there is a light for the franchise. Hey, maybe there is jewelry to come, but I think everyone deep down doesn't want that because, again, we want, people want to see us rage, and that's the most fun, and getting those overreactions and brutal honesty. So, but again, if it's not for Carson, this shit don't go anywhere. So, without him, this isn't anything. Frank is just old, and, he's, it's crazy. He has not fallen asleep at, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's got, jacked up on Mountain Dew, even though today I'm on Coke, not Mountain Dew today, but, but it's just, we're not done. It's 3 idiots, a rhinoceros, a nerd, and an old man just talking ball, yapping their asses off, and trying to have fun. And we applaud the guys who do enjoy us. And keep coming. And I'll even steal a phrase. Tell a friend, tell a pet, tell a rock. Just keep coming. Because think about it. If we get good, the content gets good. And obviously now the off season, we got plenty of surprises all in every media possible. You know, we might start an OnlyFans at episode 200. We'll put that in the chat below. But obviously, again, the show's just starting. It's okay. But yeah, again, without you guys, we're nothing. And we're just getting started.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, listen, I definitely, let's just say there were times where this could have gone south. There were times where this did not happen. But you know, we pushed and we continued. You know, this trying to keep this consistent streak as to where we really just wanted to branch out to a lot of you guys and just basically have a live conversation about this team in the moment as to where it was, because there are tons of takes that we have had that sometimes they don't even age the next week, but it's fun to go back in terms of that and just, you know, the evolution of how that goes. You also see the evolution of me losing hair. The first stream that we did together, I had a full head of hair, guys. Like, look at this shit. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? I mean, it's been a while. Let's just say that. I've aged very, very poorly. To be fair, I'm going to tell you right now, the funny thing is, for some of you that don't know, I will give you a fact. I'm the youngest one on this panel, which is crazy to think, isn't it?
By 7
I
years.
am the youngest
He's
one on the
12.
panel. Yeah, I'm 12 years old, and look at me. I look like, you know, I'm going into my 50s. You know, I think, you know, when it comes to, you know, when we started this at the first point, we didn't know where it was going to head. But I think that when we knew that there was a conversation that could have been held and we started to get a lot more comfortable with the back and forth and we started to know the route that everybody likes to go in, specifically from the three of us, I'd say, which have been the most consistent people since we have met on this show. But when it comes to, I think it really had like some kind of a connection as to where not only was it not perfect at the beginning, but we definitely strived to get this thing better and tried to get this thing spread out a lot more. And there's definitely some flaws as well that we want to fix going forward as well. And there's things that we want to keep that consistency with. And, you know, to see another season come and go and us just talking about this team in a consistent manner after every single series. I mean, that's every 3 games, new topics every single time, new games that are all put together. Now, you know, we all know who the architect behind it is, but again, when it comes to these two on the screen with me, it's not a show without them either. You know, they bring, you know, their energy, they bring their opinions. Sometimes they bring it in a direction that I didn't even expect it to go into. And we just revert and they take advantage of the kid with ADD and they get him startled. And they find joy in that. But when it comes to our entire show here, there is nobody that I would rather do this show with than these two. And I say that in any way as to where if they have pissed me off at any point, annoyed me, bullied me into any point, spammed me with a bunch of crap that I don't like, pissed me off, sent me stupid shit. That's mainly just Andrew. But these two, I'll tell you, I don't think that this would have gone anywhere without you two kind of giving this, you know, different perspective as opposed to me, who can come from the analytical stance and kind of go a little bit more into the numbers, give a little character to it. But then we also just have the randomness of Andrew, which we have missed for a majority of the season, but he's been able to make a decent amount of the streams. And then we have Frank, who possibly, I think, could probably talk for 24 hours straight. I do believe that he could do it if we asked him to do it, until his voice just went completely numb. And because I know that these two can talk anyone's ear off in regards to pretty much anything, but also when it comes to the Mets, there's a lot of passion. These two are very, they're loud in their different ways. Let's just say that. And I'm loud as well. And it kind of just counteracts in that way. And there's been times where we've gone at each other's throats. There's been times where we have agreed. And then there's times where we're just, trolling each other. Sometimes somebody doesn't realize it. And then there's a good connection here. Let's just say that. And it's been a good thing that that's been going on for a long time. And we do appreciate everyone who has been in the notice to watch it for a long time, as we've evolved in that sense. For those of you who know the lingo and know the lore of Mets Weekly, there's some that are there that have been here since day one. Before even this podcast got started, before this even channel got started. It's been a long time. And let me tell you one thing, even though we don't have the biggest of audiences as compared to anybody in sports media, we definitely from the beginning built this thing from scratch. When you talk about a Mets Weekly channel, a Mets Weekly, platform, we built this thing all the way up from scratch. And, I think that we have put this thing out as a platform where people can be brutally honest. They can be polite, as compared to some people that have been a little bit extreme. But when it comes to this platform, I think that, we've come here and just said what is on our mind. And sometimes it's extreme. Some people disagree. And sometimes we calm down. It happens. Sometimes we don't calm down. But we're all really reacting to the same season and the same amount of games that you guys are watching as well. And, we'll see where that takes us in the future. The future now that we're looking... The future that we are looking to is more of the off season, which is coming up now. We will have some content out there in the future. We don't know where this is going to take us, of course, because we're all just reacting to the events that happen. We didn't know what was going to happen this season, and here we are. But that is pretty much how I do want to wrap it up. But 100 episodes in the books, and even though it's been way more than that, I cannot thank everyone enough who has tuned in. For those of you who have watched us since the beginning, for those of you who saw us during this playoff run and thought our chat was pretty cool, for those of you who don't even chat because some of you are afraid to talk to us and you just want to watch secretly. And then for those of you who are just here for Andrew to just say the most random things and possibly get us banned off the platform. It hasn't happened yet, but we've come close. We have come very, very, very close, and hopefully we'll see. I don't know. I think that at one point, this will be a lot bigger in one area than another. I don't know where it's going to take us. We'll see what happens. But if there's anything else that you guys want to add, because we have been doing this for even longer than 100 episodes. We have done collaborations on different channels. We have done videos together. We have done different streams, reaction streams. We have done recaps, videos. We have done so many different things together. And the main reason as to why we continue to do that and seem to be linked together as the three of us, it just seems like, we do enjoy talking about our team, and especially with the two others on the screen, whether it's from me or Frank or Andrew. We're all Mets fans here, and although we control each other and get on each other's nerves, this is quite a group that we have here and quite a dynamic that I hope continues for a long time. But Frank, if there's anything you want to add, anything sappy, if you want me to put in some emotional music, I could. But it is 2 a.m. at this current moment, so I'm a little bit lazy in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, we've done watch-alongs even. I mean, we've watched the Arizona Diamondback games at like 12 a.m. live, and everyone's just on a totally different timestamp. I mean, one guy's like 2 batters ahead, so we've had a little bit of everything for sure. But just the fact that the channel keeps growing, people keep supporting. I mean, that's the main thing. And again, we're just really appreciative of that. And again, like we say, no opinion is wrong. Kind of one of those things. Is like we disagree on stuff, and I disagree with people in the chat. They obviously disagree with me, but it's all good. Like, we all respect each other, and we're good the next day. We don't hold grudges and stuff like that. So it's always a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, there's anything else? I mean, we're just going around the bin here, in a circle.
Circle, Ben. There you go. But yeah, I can't be mad again. When you eat Chili's with someone like I have with Frank, I feel like I could just roast him any day of the week, and there's a bond because we got a 2 for 20, we're good. So I could say, Jeff McNeil might be worse than Joseph Stalin, and he's gonna be all right. And then he could say something about Brett Beatty, and there's an equal response. But again, there's a symbiotic relationship between everybody. If as a Venom fan, there is that with everybody. If it's the nerd shit, if it's the old man takes, if it's me just yapping as I always do, there's just a good balance. And again, the 3 amigos that can do anything. And again, we're not stopping. And we also have a breaking announcement. We're gonna stop. We're actually gonna take the channel. We're gonna make it a Knicks channel. So since Tuesday starting, we're doing a watch along for the Celtics. But besides that, again, we'll see what day we're back. But again, we're not going anywhere. And like I said, suck it, I guess.
Jesus. Yeah, the Knicks channel, I don't know. Maybe we'll branch it out at one point, but at this current moment, the Mets are enough. They're enough of a headache. Let's just say that. But, I mean, it has been one hell of a ride, just like it has been one hell of a ride this season for the New York Mets, which I do believe we have gone the deepest into of any season this year in 2024, in regards to our content. And hopefully, we can, spread it out even more. I'm hoping that we can, I'm hoping that we can expand it a little bit more as to maybe there is some like solo stuff in the future. Maybe there's some different types of shows that we have. But for the meantime, we're just here to talk about the New York Mets and just yap and yap over and over and over again. And it's basically just how we feel in regards to how the team is doing, and we're just being brutally honest as we can. And, we also advise the chat to be brutally honest as well of how they feel regarding regarding this. And to be honest, I was thinking about having a poll of you guys being brutally honest and just saying, who's your favorite host? Hurt our feelings. Go ahead. Be brutally honest. Go ahead. Go for the jugular. But I also just forgot to do that. So, we also have some flaws here. It's not perfect, as we've said. But yeah, we're not going anywhere, as we've said, even though the Mets are going home. We've got some off-season stuff. I am not sure when our next live show is going to be for the podcast. We do have to kind of figure that out. But we will definitely get you guys an answer very, very soon in regards to that. We're going to start off with some off-season stuff of internally. I can definitely tell you the next episode is going to be about the free agents and what we would do with them in terms of that. And then, some, in-season performances, stuff like that. There is one video I want to do. I'm hoping that I do have some time to do that in terms of the frame. But hopefully, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But any last words that you guys want to add for this? And
Nice.
if there's any things that you guys want to add at the end here for this season, for anything, I mean, it has been, I'd say we have already, let's say we are very emotional fans. And I will say right now, I've already accepted that they lost. Like, I'm already moving on. I'm already good. Like it's already settled. It's more of just rather of expectation. It sucks that they lost. And I hope that it does feel for any of you guys in the chat right now watching live that you're like, okay, well, we're just having a common conversation here. And, we've got our mind off of it. And we're just talking about the Mets while not thinking about the Mets. That's kind of how I look at it, as to where it's just a random conversation. We all can have our laughs no matter what. And we don't really take anything to heart. I mean, losses suck. It happens. They just lost today. And, they're going home. But we know that going forward, there's a lot better. As for Explosive saying, we are the 12 steps for Mets fans. That's what we're here for, the anger, the denial, that's all the stages, the stages of grief. We go through it. That's kind of just how we go through, with raw reactions as to, the full on analysis. And, that's kind of how I look at it, but I'm rambling at this point. Andrew, I'll go to you in regards to that. Any last words that you have going into this off season to wrap this glorious season up, the year of Grimace?
Again, and Frank's definitely been alive a lot longer. It's been 40 years. It's been 30 years over 30 years since the last time they won a World Series. I can wait another. And again, we have stability, we have comfortability, and we have a bright future with youth, as well as a guy up top that I trust to run the team. So as much as, Grimace is great, everyone get their, next day McDonald's as our last, patronage to Grimace, and then, again, wipe the page and let the new era begin.
All right. On to 2025. Frank, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been through Luis Rojas, Mickey Callaway. I mean, we've been through a lot. So to now have Mendoza have a good run at it, we've been through Porter and Scott and Sandy and a whole bunch of other guys. So to finally have a lot of different areas, things that are stable. We just hope now that when we do this offseason concert, everything, it's like stuff that like actually improves and makes that long-term success that we've been craving for. Not these once every decade kind of things. So that's kind of what I'm hopeful for, is that we could finally get that like sustained winning, like every year is playoffs, not like this, oh my gosh, Mets finally got the playoffs. Like it shouldn't be like this huge thing. Like we should try to be like, okay, how do we get to the next step? Like that's where I hope this is now headed based off how this year went. Because the other times like we're like, does it last? We don't know, but to just finally get that stability is the most important part.
There's a lot of angles where I look at it where this team doesn't last the way that they did this year. And, there's ways that it's just going to catch up to them with how they played this year. But it's a little bit different as compared to something like 2022 or 2015, where, I trust the front office that they're looking at the little things that create the big picture. And that's kind of how I hope that they address it. Going forward, I think that when it comes to, somebody like David Stearns, I've really been, I've never agreed with a executive more than I've seen David Stearns for one of my teams. I think that there's been things that I'm like, okay, why the hell is he doing this? But there's also been other things where I've looked at it and I'm like, okay, I understand this. I understand why they're doing this. I see why they're going in this direction. And we saw that a little bit, with the recent regime under Steve Cohen. There were times when it was under the old ownership where we're like, what the fuck is this team doing? This makes absolutely no sense. And it's typical Mets once again. Well, right now, I've definitely seen the reasoning behind a lot of things. And I also feel like under this new regime, it doesn't seem like I'm being lied to. I'm not being sold a bill of goods that this team is going to go all the way. This team is great. This team is awesome. we had David Stearns be very honest with us this year. He was very, very honest. He said, we're going to build a competitive team. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be things that we look at that maybe we improve. We're going to give the younger players a chance to grab their footing in the major leagues. And everything I just listed right there, they did that this year. They were a competitive team. They were, they had their growing pains. They were, inconsistent at times, and they went through the motions. This was a roller coaster. And hopefully we have a little bit less of a roller coaster next year. But we all know the Mets, when it comes to roller coasters, it's absolute cinema. So as for those of you who are still in here watching at 2:10 a.m. Eastern time, we really appreciate you. And the audio version will be out in about 7 hours from now. So for those of you that see us live, for those of you who listen on audio, we appreciate you as well. For those of you who follow us on Twitter and watch through Twitter, we recommend that you come to YouTube. But if you think that Twitter is a little bit more comforting for you, we don't want anybody to ship out of their comfort zone. We just love to hear your comments and all of your breakdowns of what you think. Because it's not just us who are brutally honest. It can be you guys, too, in the chat. And, nothing that you can say can hurt us, even though the two people that I do this stream with and I do this show with are just sensitive people. Like, you cannot say anything past these guys. These guys are very high strung. I have been, very reasonable. I've never yelled at the top of my lungs. I can't remember, and there is no video proof of it. But when it comes to overall our show, tons to come, and we hope that you enjoy this ride with us, and you hope that you join the ride with us, and we continue to pump out content, and this becomes a Mets community around our platform, because that's what we want. We want to talk New York baseball. We want to talk Mets baseball, and we want to discuss with you guys of what you guys think, and that's what this platform is. It's about opinion, it's about brutal honesty, and it's about being straightforward to hopefully get to the goal, which is the hardware, which is the banner, and hopefully we get to that at one point, and I'm confident that one day we could. Anyways, we are going to end it off here. Little bit extended episode here because it's special, 100 episodes. Here's to 100 more. For those of you in here, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Like the stream, it really helps us out. Thank you guys so much for all of the all postseason long, all the support. Like Frank said, there's been people that have come in here who are here for the pregame and they're here for the postgame, and they choose that they're like, you know what? Out of every single content creator out there, we want to hang out with these guys after the game and vent and say what we think and give our opinion. And that's what we want this platform to be for all of you. So for those of you in here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like I said. But make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. All of us individually, we all showed up here. Thank you, Andrew, for finally deciding to show up and wake up and stop getting sick. And of course, Frank has some better attendance than Andrew, but we're all here along for the ride. And let's just say, after 100 episodes, like I said, there is nobody else I would do this show with than you two. These guys, though we fight, these guys are like family to me. They really are. And I do mean that. I'm not saying that in a kidding way, even though we troll. These guys are like family. They become family to me in a way. And I'm not trying to keep this sappy, and I think we can move on before I start to cry. But we will see you guys next time. We don't know when that is going to be, but we will let you guys know soon. On to the offseason. One more time, the Mets, their season is over, but we are far from done here. 10-5, Dodgers win the series. 4-2 in the NLCS. Move on to play the New York Yankees in the World Series. which I believe is going to go to 7 games, but that's a different conversation. We'll see you guys next time, whenever that is. Let's go Mets. Moving on to the offseason. Fantastic run we had here. Just ended a little short, but it was one heck of a ride. And we can finally put to bed the great Grimace Mets that gave us quite a season that was very, very fun and eventful. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out. And don't hurt yourself because the Mets lost. All right, don't go crazy. All right, calm down. We're getting there. We'll see you guys next time.